Welcome back to Enshrouded, everyone. Today I'm going to be building a small workshop for the Carpenter NPC as an addition to my forest village that I have been working on for a long time now. Doing lots of videos and streams with all of the builds and everything. We are getting super close to finishing the tavern for all of the villagers up on the hillside there. So this will be a nice little addition that I figured it was about time to do. And I have a floor plan here that I will go over with you before we start the build. So without further ado, sit back, get cozy, and let's get building. So for the floor plan here, it is basically a 3x5 using these 4-meter ceiling pieces as floor blueprints with the Vuka temple stones. And I have 3 of them by 5 of them going across. And then using these big columns out of the well block, I have a column on each of the corners of the build, as well as 2 columns on either side of this center floor blueprint to sort of be a little bit of trim for maybe a little door or mostly windows on the sides here. Because another plan for this build that I wanted, as you can see, we kind of have a little rustic stairway going up through here and a path that follows beside the lake, which will soon be real water because of the water biome update. Really excited about that. Climbs up here, we'll have the blacksmith hut over here, and then we have a path behind the waterfall that goes up to the tavern. So I want this side of the carpenter workshop to almost be like a open covered porch, if that makes any sense, to have the walkway almost going through the build to be able to have any of the villagers or townspeople come in here and kind of have this open outdoor space to do some carving or carpentry. And then you can kind of have a door on here that goes into the lower level, maybe a little fireplace and living area for the carpenter, maybe some tool storage, and then a staircase to a upstairs loft that will cover this covered porch. So that's kind of the plan here, and why I think this area is going to remain open. This area is going to be the more closed off space. So to start with, I'm going to actually do the ceiling here, which will also be the floor for the loft. We're going to do it out of the conifer wood, and I'm just going to snap it right to the top of these pillars here. Let's do something like that. And this one is going to continue all the way across. Let's see here. There we go. Something like that. There, and then that should be all the way across. Yep. So I'm just going to fill this in, and then we can start working on the walls. And for the walls, I am also going to use the conifer wood block. But what we're going to do for these is actually turn snapping off, because I want to basically recess them by 1 block, as I usually do with my builds, so that you can see these outer pillars sort of make this nice corner here. So I'm going to do this the rest of the way across, still with snapping off, just because it gets really finicky with it on. It wants to snap to the outer edge, which I don't want. So I'm just going to finish off that wall, which for now is going to be a solid wall. And then I want to do actually I'm going to make all the walls solid for now. And we're going to sort of block out our windows a bit later. So again, just sort of sitting it down on the top there. And in by 1, so, oops, that was a little too far. Let's put that right there. Perfect. And same thing on this side. So here, and then making it all the way up to the corner there, and something just like that. I'll rotate it around again and do this front end for now. But this is likely going to be a bit changed later on. So I'm just going to put 2 on the sides because I'm not fully sure the placement for a door just yet. But that's kind of how it'll be. So we'll have this big covered deck. You go into the house, and then I want to have a window that is right over here. So I'm going to go ahead and block that out. I think, yeah, right in the center of this section. About 2 blocks up from the bottom, just a little 2x3 window. This side here is actually kind of a perfect place for a fireplace. So I'm just going to block out like a little 4x4 opening there for now. And I also just realized, oh, maybe not. Okay. It looked like the light was coming through a little bit weird up there. Sometimes it does that. I want to have a larger window right on this side. So right in the center here, I'm going to do a 2x3 window. Something a little larger. And same thing on this side here. Let's do a 2x3 window. Something just like that. So those will be our windows. And then for some stairs to the upper level, I'm going to start blocking those out. So I'm going to go to my stairs here and make them out of the refined wood block, I think. And not the very edge, but let's go 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have 4 blocks there, and then backing it in to the wall just by 1 block. So that was by 2 blocks. Let's just back it in by 1. So it basically sticks out 3 blocks like that and has a little 4 block wide opening there. And then I'm going to do the same thing right up top. Oops. That was out a little bit too far. There we go. And then with the single block, I'm going to take the palm wood, which just creates a nice little trim edge to the stairs here. And I'm going to go ahead and use that. So there's our stairs to the little loft that I'll have here. Now I'm just going to hollow out a little opening up here. Basically, yeah, exactly like that. Something like that. And then going over here. And with the single block, I'm going to replace all of these guys. Well, actually, yeah, just keeping it like that, basically. So that you climb up into the loft, and then I'm going to have about like a 45-degree roof up here. Something along those lines. But this is looking really good. Little fireplace, like tiny little kitchen corner over here. Maybe a little bit of storage and space under the stairs there. Little living room spot here, and then maybe some beds up in the loft. So now I'm going to come up with a roof plan for this build. And to do that, if you haven't watched my other videos on building roofs and everything, we are going to build a mossy roof, like a lot of the rest of my builds here. But we're going to start with some stair pieces, and I'm just going to make them out of the rough cut stone because this is all just temporary. And with snapping turned off, we are going to sort of create a little bit of an outline for ourselves here. Let's just do, I don't know, something like that. Rotate it around, something like that. And then maybe cutting it in a little bit further. How high up does that one go? Let's do 1 more block up there. So I'm going to get my single block and do 2 more at the very top, and then coming out on both sides. And this can be a little bit tricky. I may just use some little blocks as scaffolding and everything. And also comment below if the rain is something you like in my building tutorials, or if you'd like me to turn it off with the weather effects. Because sometimes I choose to turn it off. Sometimes in the case of this forest village, I feel like some of the ambience and everything is kind of nice to have. Makes it really cozy. So we're just going to come out 2 blocks on both sides like that. The very top is going to be 3. And then let's do 2 like that. Yeah, so that's 1, 2, 3. Perfect. So 2, and let's do another 2 right there. Okay, and now I'm just going to basically blend this all the way in. So let's go destroying those guys. And let's do another 2 there, and then maybe go up 45 here. Yeah, something like that. That's looking pretty good. Okay. Maybe we'll tweak a few things here and there. Yeah, we're just outlining basically a little roof shape to kind of be a pointy roof. That looks really good to me. Sort of have it flare out a little bit. I think we'll have enough room for a loft staircase. Yeah, we should have a good amount of room here for the landing. So now that we have our little end profile there, I'm going to do the same thing, but on the front of the build, because we're just going to have like a little frontal roof peak to sort of accent that window there. So I'm basically going to copy exactly what we have here, just to the front of the build, with the center of it being exactly central in between these other two pillars. And here you can see I am finished doing exactly that. We have basically an exact replica of what we have on the side roof, just centered right here on the front. So those will basically meet up and connect later. But for now, what we're gonna do is take the tarred shingle roof block, and basically on every single one of the edges here, we're going to continue it. You can see just the outer pieces, something like that, all the way across to this side. And for all of the steeper and shallower angles like I'm doing here, you will need to place it block by block since we don't really have smaller roof blueprints. But just remember that for these bigger sections that are exactly 45, or if you have big flat sections, you can always just use the roof blueprints to make your job go a lot quicker and easier. All right, so I have now continued the roof all the way down to this side here. And I didn't really worry about doing all of the exact placement in this area since this is all going to be hollowed out anyway. And you'll notice over here, I've basically overlapped it by 2 blocks. So you can see 1, 2 overlapping the edge of the foundation sort of right there. And we're gonna do the same thing over here. So I'll just go to my blueprint, and sometimes, yeah, it won't allow me to destroy these blueprints. So I'll just destroy them block by block. We're gonna get rid of all of our stone here that we placed. And then once that's all gone, I'm gonna take my individual roof blocks, basically overlap it by 2 blocks on that side as well. And there we go, something just like that. I just built this little piece of block there to stand on. Now I can destroy that. And then the last step here, before we fill in the ends, is just to continue this basically, this front roof, until it ties in to the existing one that we finished. So I'm just gonna kind of do this block by block just to make sure I'm getting all of the ones across. So something just like this, basically on the entire edge of that, until it comes across and meets in with our existing roof. And once it does meet in with the existing roof, we can just take some blueprints and single blocks and everything here and go ahead and destroy some of these little guys here, just so that we end up with this nice clean corner there where they all meet up. So I'm just gonna continue this all the way around, and then same thing as the other 2 ends. When we're done tying this in, I'm gonna destroy the stone and then overlap it out the front of the building by 2 blocks. And there we go. The roof is now finished, at least the block portion of it, before we put moss all over the top. And in case you're wondering, I didn't really mention it in this video because I mention it a lot, but I have my voxel detail models turned off, because you can see if I turn that on, sometimes it creates these weird textures around the edge of the roof. You can see them happening on this side, which can get a bit distracting. So I usually just like to leave that off until I'm done with the roof, and then I'll turn it on, because those will all disappear anyway once we put the moss over the roof. So that is looking really, really good to me. I love the size of it. I love this open feel here for the little path to kind of go through. And now I'm going to head upstairs and take the single roof block here, and we're just going to fill in the ends of these roofs. And I just really like using the roof block for that, because we can create some nice round windows, and the side texture of this block just looks really, really great. You can see up here, that's what I've done for my tavern, for the roof up there and everything, and it just looks fantastic. So I'm gonna go around and do that to all 3 of these roof cap areas here, and then I'll get back with you soon. Okay, here we go. All of the 3 ends are filled in, and you can see I've left some space for windows. Basically 3 blocks up from the bottom, and the openings are 4 blocks wide by 1, 2, 3 blocks tall. to sort of create these nice round openings that we will fill with window pieces eventually. But that's what looked best to me. You can see if we move out here, I really, really love the look of that. We'll have this open deck. The loft will sort of go over it, just like so. So I'm really happy with that. One more thing before we add our moss to the roof. I want to just go around and maybe fill in a little bit with let's do the conifer wood block here. Just around the perimeter to kind of clean up where the roof meets the ground there. I think that'll just look a little nicer. Won't be such a skinny gap there. It'll look a little more finished for the loft. It'll also close up some of these little light gaps or things where the roof has some issues sort of meshing with the block below it. So I'm just gonna go around and do that. And then we can start covering the roof with a bunch of moss and flower soil. All right, time to cover everything with moss and flower soil. It'll primarily be moss. And to make this part less confusing, you can see how it's all the little mossy textures. We can go into our settings while we're building the roof and then display. And similar to how I had voxel detail models off, we can go ahead and turn small foliage off as well. And that's just gonna make this a lot more blocky and ugly for now, but much easier to see where we're placing things. So sometimes these ones you can get away with using these blueprints. You can see the cube 1 meter. Unfortunately, it's not working in this scenario, but sometimes it'll snap in the right spot. Otherwise, just place it block by block. And then we're gonna go up one and basically placing the moss and some flower soil, just kind of randomly putting little pieces of flower soil every now and then. It just kind of breaks up the look, makes it a little less perfect and nicer looking. And then you can see this deep ridge here. We basically just want to overlap it by 1. So once you go up, and then we'll fill in these ridges here. And do that exact same thing, covering the entire roof. So going across here, and you can see then on top of this block here, maybe I'll do a separate tutorial down the road of just how to do a mossy roof, all the tips and tricks and everything, because I've got some longer live streams, but not really a concise tutorial just on doing my terrain roofs, because I use this technique a lot for snowy roofs, for the straw roofs, using the VUCA nesting material, and of course the mossy roofs. I just think it looks really, really good, and it kind of makes you able to customize the roof to whatever shape you want. Not just stuck at a 45-degree angle or anything. You can make it look nice and smooth and do whatever type of roof peak you'd like. So I'm just gonna finish this out, covering the entire top of this roof with moss and flower soil. And after a bit of time, this is what we have here. I've covered the entire top of the roof now with some moss and flower soil, which I think is looking really nice. But I wanted to show you how I do these little flare outs, because you can see on the ends here, I decided to kind of bring that point of the roof out a little bit, like I've done with a lot of the builds in here. So I'm gonna demonstrate how I do that and kind of how I touch up the whole edging on this front face here. So let's take the larger ceiling blueprint, just jump up a little bit to build ourselves a little bit of scaffolding. And then with the roof block, we want to come out by 4 blocks. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then I'm just going to blend that down. So let's go 3 and then 2, something like that. And let's come out with these ones here. And then maybe these guys right here. Let's see here. Maybe something along those lines. Maybe a little bit less there. Yeah, that looks nice. All right. So yeah, that's what I've done on the other one. So sort of 1 block and then 2 blocks back. So there's sort of the under structure of it. And then we're just gonna go back a little bit more with the scaffolding, do another jump up, and take our little cube here to come out over the roof, just like so. And then taking the single terrain blocks, and we're just gonna kind of bring this whole area out. we want to come out to the edge of the blocks here. So similar right in this section. Let's do 2 right there. Maybe a few right in here. So something along those lines. Let's do the same thing to this side as well. Just coming out a little bit, alternating some moss and flower soil. And then right back in here. Something along those lines there. And then we want to do a terrain block, basically outlining the entire edge of our roof so that it sort of wraps around, cleans up the front edge, and makes it look really nice. So let's go and do that here, all the way up. Again, just kind of alternating the blocks. And then continue all of these guys up like that. Let's put one more, yeah, right in there. Make sure it's all looking smooth and good. Yeah, this is looking very nice here. Let's come out by one more block there. Maybe something like that. Okay, so it wraps around nicely. You could even come down a little bit in the front. Yeah, that's what I did to the other side. So let's take a look at that now from a little farther away. And that is looking very nice. Just kind of brings that moss wrapping around, and you can see that I've done the same thing here to the edges. I've brought this one layer of moss around so that it's at the same exact height and kind of covering the edge of those roof blocks. So now it's time to go into the settings, turn the detail models back on as well as the foliage, and take a look at what we have so far. There we go. That is the mossy roof with all of the nice foliage and detail. And I think that turned out super nice. So I think now I'm going to do the windows and we can start working on some of the interior detail. Maybe do the chimney and all of that good stuff. So for the windows, I'm going to use these iron window frames and just snap them in. Oops. Want it off to the side here. There we go. And right there. And then same thing up top, only this time we're gonna take the hammer and destroy the bottoms of these windows. Just the very bottom row of blocks. It only has to be 2 blocks wide, that's fine. Because we're gonna use, 2 of these, something like this, to create these rounded windows. So it sort of has this cross in it. And I'm gonna do the same thing over here. Just snapping those in. There we go. Oops, I wanted them one further down. Let's see if I can pick that one up. There we go. Wanted them more down here. Let's see if they'll snap down there. Those ones won't. So yeah, sometimes they can be a little bit finicky. Will they do it in third person? Not quite. Okay. So let's go ahead and hit the undo on that window. Let's see if they'll do it over here. Yes, they'll do it over here. Okay. So I'll snap them there and then hit the undo again, which is going to bring those blocks back. That's basically what we're getting for the inside windows. This side right here, I'm just going to hit undo, and rather than just destroying the top layer, we're going to go 2 blocks down instead, because that will definitely work. There we go. So snap those guys and then hit the undo twice. And there we have our windows filled in. I think those look nice. So go out here. Yeah, those look great. And now let's do some trim around the lower windows over here. I'm going to use these ornamented wooden frames. And we're just going to put them on either sides of the window. Let's do them on both sides there, and then same thing on the back one here. There we go. Just like that, to sort of mimic some shutters. And I definitely could do a nice little window kind of overlooking there at some point. I'm not sure if I'll block it out yet or not. But then I'll take the roof block, and for this one I'm going to use the desert shingles roof block. That's what I've been using because it matches the well block there kind of nicely. I like the turquoise in it for the block palette of the forest village here. So we're just going to sort of create little trim pieces above the windows. Do the same thing to the back side here. And there we go. We can now go out of the building, see how that's looking. Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. We could have some little, put a little bit of foliage even, kind of wrapping up some of the poles here. I really can't wait till we can place some foliage on roof blocks. That will be really nice. Yeah, just adding a little bit of that here on the floor. And then eventually we could put some little planter boxes in front of the windows as we kind of decorate a little bit more. Now I'm going to figure out this door situation. I think I want a fairly large door on the front. So I'm going to go back up to the treehouse and we're going to make a double wide door because I think that's what I'm after over there. Let's go to the Carpenter. And we can just use 2 of the conifer wood doors, I think is what I'm going to go for here. So let's see here. Yeah. Do a double door. And we're going to use that because it'll be kind of nice to open it out and sort of tie the outside space to the inside space there. So we're going to use one of these ones. And actually, that is a very tall door there. I had started to build some trim going up, but I'm going to destroy that because this door is going to go pretty much all the way to the roof there, which I kind of like. Acts kind of as this like garage door opening, having plenty of space to sort of tie the indoors to the outdoors. And seeing this to again sort of emphasize that indoor-outdoor feel, I'm going to go ahead and put 2 more windows here. I think that'll look nice. We don't need any sort of big fancy kitchen or any big things in here because I already have all of the facilities for these villagers and NPCs in the tavern up there. Huge kitchens, bars, all of that good stuff. So we're just going to be simple here and use a lot of the wall space for windows since it feels a little bit cramped here and I don't want it to feel too claustrophobic or anything. So I'll just continue over these. Yeah, this is going to be awesome. And there we have it. I think the exterior of the building is pretty much complete. Only last thing is to do the chimney here. And for that, I'm going to use the flintstone block to place the first little area that'll kind of be the fireplace. And then we can just take the little 1 meter block here to sort of narrow it down. And on the very outside here, I'm going to destroy that so that we can continue our chimney up and above. And then maybe I'll take the little single block and do a few, like, I don't know, sort of tie it into the house a little bit maybe. Maybe just a couple of blocks. Kind of make it a little bit more three-dimensional there. That looks nice. And then we can just take our little 1 meter again and continue out to the top, maybe about that high. And then let's take our single blocks with the refined stone just to kind of make a little bit of a cap there. And then I'm going to destroy 3 blocks down. And we're going to use these little small stone braziers. And with snapping on, we're just going to snap one of those. Hit the undo button twice. And that gives the illusion that there's a little bit of smoke coming out the chimney there, which I think looks really nice. And you can get really decorative with the top of the chimneys and everything. For the sake of this build, I'm just going to keep it fairly simple, like the rest of the builds in this village. And now we could get fancy and just start doing a lot of decorating. For example, I think I'll do some little lanterns right on the outside of this door here. Give some light to the outside. We could even put a chandelier in the middle here. This is usually the order in which I go about decorating things. Once the entire shell is done and everything, we'll get the lighting done so that I can then see everything that I'm doing inside. So let's see, maybe a chandelier right in the middle here. And I'm gonna basically glitch it up by 12 clicks because I think that's as high as we can go without it glitching through the floor. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And I think that'll allow us to, yeah, it's a little low. I may be able to get away with going a little higher than that. Let's see. Nope, that's as high as you can go. Then you see that little dot on the floor. Yeah, so maybe it's a little bit too low of a roof for a chandelier then here in this case. I think I'll just use maybe some torches. Yeah, maybe some outdoor torches or something here. I can use a few of these. This will be nice because this will also light the path a little bit, which I think will look good. Yeah, let's go with some of those. All right. I like that. Little outdoor space. We'll make the workbench and maybe the sawmill and all of that stuff will go out here. That'll be nice. So I'm just going to go grab a bunch of interior decoration stuff and I can do our little fireplace, you know, mini kitchen kind of a thing along this back wall. Maybe a little hangout area right there. And then a little bedroom spot upstairs. All right, the carpenter's workshop is now complete. I've done some nice little decorations, so let me take you on a full walkthrough and show you everything that I've done. So on the outside here, the one little tweak to the exterior that I decided to do was to hang these little tiny firefly lanterns at the points of the roof. You can see I did one there, one on the point to the right there. So I thought that looked kind of good. And then as we walk up in here, right on these pillars, I used the stair railings, the 45-degree stair railing pieces, to sort of create these little diagonal beams to tie in, make it look a little nicer on this covered porch area. And this has become sort of his little outdoor workshop area to maybe host some little classes or something like that. Got some furniture, little windows stacked up there, the workbench, some tools. I used the pallets here, kind of on their sides, little pallet walls, to sort of enclose the area back here, make it feel a little more cozy. Just some little tables, places for people to sit and do some carving and all of that good stuff. Little table saw there. And then we enter the main house portion. And to the right here, we have the carpenter. So I thought this was a nice place for him, sort of a little indoor area for some tools and crates and, I don't know, other additional carpentry things in case the weather outside's bad or anything. But yeah, it'll be nice just to kind of work out here and beautiful little view of the lake and everything. Absolutely love the layout of this forest village. And then to the left inside here, we've got the little fire, just a cozy little hangout spot there, which felt right. And then the tiny kitchenette over here, little countertops, sinks, all this good stuff. I still do plan to do a tutorial at some point for kitchen decoration ideas because I've got a lot of cool kitchens and a lot of builds. So I'm just kind of gathering up a lot of cool ideas and techniques and things. And I would love to get a video out about that at some point soon. Yeah, I've got just a little kitchen island for sitting and eating there. And then put the railings on the side of the stairs so that we can head up here. And this is the bedroom. So on the top, I put the midnight block, or the starlight block, I should say. I love how this looks on the roof ridges in bedrooms. I did this in my tavern and absolutely love the way it turned out with the dark blue and the gold. It's just so cozy up here. And I'll show you this build at night as well at the end so you can see what that looks like. But yeah, we've just got a little bed for the carpenter, maybe a little wardrobe area for some clothing. And then heading into here, I thought the perfect thing to do with this empty space would be to do a little bathroom. So I used some coffin lids flipped upside down to create like a little stone countertop there. And we just have the little toilet and tub shower combo there. And with the white luminescent block just to give some brighter light in the bathroom here. So let me show you how the build looks at nighttime. And here we go. This is what the workshop looks like at night. I absolutely love the way that looks. And I can't wait till I also continue this luminous growth all the way around the pond and fill it with some real water. This is gonna look so nice. Some little fishing docks going off of here. But yeah, I love the atmosphere here. Super, super cozy. I put some ectoplasm blocks up in the ceilings there, just for some little bit of green light with the gold to kind of accent the workbench and stuff. So it looks super nice, and I just love how it ties the outdoors to the indoors. Perfect little place here to hang out by the lake and everything. Some little candles along the path up to the tavern, and the future blacksmith hut going right there. So yeah, I love the lighting here. I'll show you what the upstairs looks like. Here's what inside looks like on the lower level. Nice and cozy. And here is what the upstairs looks like. You can really see there that blue glow from the starlight block with the gold. Really, really quite a cozy space. So with that, I hope you enjoyed this video. I definitely had a lot of fun building this cozy little house. And if you'd like to see more, then be sure to subscribe and also join my Discord server through the link in the description. And if you'd like to download this build along with the rest of the builds in this forest village and everything, since this is all one world, as well as other Enshrouded builds, Valheim builds of mine, then be sure to join my Patreon or YouTube membership through the link in the description as well. This will be available for bronze tier members. But with that said, I will see you next time. Cheers.